Welcome back to more Artistry Unearthed. We are Cryptic Tattoo and Social Gallery here in Springfield, Missouri. And the fact is, the robots are coming for us.
They are.
Always say please and thank you to your Alexa.
Yeah. I have this weird thing where they done studies to show that men are like more vocally aggressive against
Against robots specifically?
I guess Alexas and Siris and all that, because and I'm like, oh, of course, typical. But I discovered that with myself too. Like once I became aware of it, I was like, oh man.
Some poor grad assistant is having to tally this.
And
how aggressive men are with their
robots.
And it's one of those things like I have to curve it, and it's more difficult than I thought. I have to admit this. It was more difficult, like especially if they're not paying attention, like, you know. And it's upsetting because it's like you don't want them to be spying on you. You don't want them to be, you know.
They're going to spy on you regardless of how polite you are or not.
I mean, I'll tell my phone, like, you know, I'll be like,
Come
Google.
on, Big Brother's always spying on us.
It's like, Google. And then, like, I'm in the car trying to drive, trying to do my part, you know, not use my phone. And I'm just yelling at my phone and it's ignoring me. And then finally I'm like, stop spying on me. And then it kicks on like, oh, I would absolutely not do that. I'm like, you are so full of it.
You had one job.
Just the worst. But every now and then I tell Alexa that she's special to me and that I appreciate her. And
I told her last night I didn't.
Plant those seeds.
You didn't?
Yeah. I told her last night I didn't appreciate anything she did.
David's not going to make it as far as you in the robot apocalypse. About robots.
Yeah. So apparently, and this doesn't just pertain to tattooing. This is art in general, and we were wanting to kind of bridge and blur that line between a tattoo podcast and just an art in general. Hence, Artistry Unearthed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to get pretty deep because I got some stuff here to talk about.
A huge hot topic for at least a couple of years has been the introduction of AI, and I say that loosely because AI has been, in one way or another, been kind of incrementally, like brought into pretty much everything that we do in one way or another.
It has, but let's take a step back from that.
Okay,
let's go backwards to just
art
imagery,
rights in general.
Just imagery in general. I mean, because now AI, like you said, AI plays a big role in a lot of this, but there were things prior to the AI. And of course, AI is now something that's always being talked about. But for instance, yesterday, you and I had a brief conversation about the use of portrait work.
Oh, okay.
And duplicating portrait work, and you had brought up,
I brought up Miles Davis.
That whole concept was that situation was brought up, and at first I wasn't really, I took it and thought about it, but then as I'm at home and I'm scrolling, lo and behold, there's this article
specifically about portrait work is the ethics behind taking someone's photo. And in your case, like in our conversation yesterday, being a tattoo studio, like tattooing somebody's photo. And it's not just like a family photo or their own photo, but it's like a photo of like,
a professional photographer.
Okay.
Or from a movie and putting it on somebody's
Here's my take on that. After reading what was going on in the lawsuit that's pending and what's going on with that. Just a little background behind that. Jeffrey Sedlick was the one that took the photograph, used it. It was used in Jazz's magazine, and he registered a trademark on that photo of Miles Davis in 1994. Okay. Fast forward 2017, Kat Von D tattoos this on somebody, and here you go.
Now there's a lawsuit against her.
You've got a photographer that's suing her because she has replicated this photograph and made money. Okay.
I think he was also upset that she didn't credit him and that she was using it to advertise herself and her business.
But I don't think that she needs to. because one, she's not replicated the photograph itself and sold the photograph. If she would have taken that photograph and went to a print store and printed that off and then said, here we go, I'm going to sell this as mine. Okay, I get that where that could be copyright infringement.
Which the photographer had from Miles in his camp. So that's the thing is that.
But let's look at this though. If she goes and she tattoos that portrait on somebody and she's making money off of that, as you and I discussed, she's making money off of her skill set. She's not making money off of the photograph itself.
Okay.
If she was making money off the photograph, she would be selling that photograph. Then that would become copyright infringement. But because she is taking her skill and transposing that from a photo to skin, it's not like she has gone and duplicated really anything and sold it for profit.
So she is selling her time and her skill set.
She's not based her business around this man's photography.
Photograph.
Right.
And the thing is that if you stop and you really think about this, because a jury is going to have to decide whether or not she has infringed upon that. So now...
Because the case still isn't decided yet, right?
No,
it's been sitting in limbo for like 6 years.
No, it's not decided.
It probably won't be.
They have to decide under the Fair Use Doctrine Act whether or not she infringed upon that photographer's trademark.
Right.
If for any reason, think about this, if for any reason they were to find her guilty of that, what that would do to this industry, the tattoo industry. Are we now going to go out and sue every tattoo artist that has duplicated a portrait?
And not just tattoo artists. This is like illustrators.
And this all goes forward to including AI. Yeah. Now, looking at that situation and it being AI, if they were to try to transpose that specific image and then it turns into an AI piece and then they go and sell that, I could see where maybe that trademark infringement could happen because you're pulling that, like you said, you pull the AI and it generates its own image, and then therefore you have taken somebody else's photograph and made another photograph, and now you're going to sell that as a print to
but
make
even
money.
then, like there might be 12 different images or 200 images that are mashed together in the equation that made that new AI image. So how do you ever figure what percentage of this was Miles Davis? Like it's making me think of like, okay, is this a bar or a bar and grill? What percentage of your sales are liquor before you have to it affects that business. And so then I'm thinking like, okay, well, obviously she's translated this image to a different medium. It's not going to be exactly the same. It's not going to be a carbon copy as if she had like Xeroxed this photograph. But what if somebody does like print that photograph on a hoodie? Are they going to be more apt to be liable to be sued versus if she has completely translated it? And then like, if you think about, this is a weird stretch, but like Arby's had a series of commercials a while ago where they were doing portraits with like meats and stuff that was from Arby's. What if I go make like a picture out of pasta noodles that looks like Miles Davis? Where's the line where it's like, oh, this is too much like the original? And I think that's what the court case is trying to figure out.
Let's do this and we'll see if later we can't get this adjusted to where we can show everybody the actual photo.
Sure.
But here is the photo of Miles Davis that is there.
I think it'll have to be shared on the Insta.
And then, and then the tattoo work done by Kat Von D to see whether or not that itself, I mean, by looking at it, I mean, it's a great tattoo. It's done very well. I mean, I'm not a huge Kat Von D fan, but
there's no denying the skill.
But in her defense, I think she has every right to tattoo this.
Well, and it's not like the client themselves is like, oh my gosh, I got this amazing original work, Kat Von D artwork that she drew herself of this person. There's no denying
when they
who
go
that
and they
is.
show that, they're showing that is, check out, this photography photo. Look at my tattoo.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean,
Yeah.
if they
It's
were
about
to
the
go and
tattooer.
if they were to go and buy the actual original Miles Davis photograph,
Right.
then they could go, okay, well, look at my Miles Davis photo that I bought. Okay,
Yeah.
they're not going and saying, well, here, look at my Miles Davis photo on my arm. No, they're saying, look at my tattoo.
It's Miles Davis and it's Kat Von D. That's the two names that are being associated.
The two names. So, but I also thought of, well, then if the photographer is suing her, where does Miles Davis's family fit into this?
Right. Do they care?
Does not his estate have some say in this?
Right. I
Because
think that would
just
be
because
in,
you
like, the
trademark
original-
a photograph doesn't mean that you own that person. It
That's
doesn't,
in the original agreement, I think, as to like what you're able to use this for when he went to this photo
Right.
shoot. Because
Right.
it's not like a paparazzi photo that somebody snapped without asking him. He went and sat down for a professional photo shoot. So that should have been negotiating
It was
that original
cover of a
contract.
magazine, wasn't it?
well, it was on the cover of Jazz Is.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And that's where, and then of course that was trademarked in 94. And then fast forward to 2017, she posts on Instagram her doing this tattoo of Miles Davis. And who, lo and behold, sees this? But Jeffrey Sedlick,
Yeah.
the person who takes the photo. Now, of course, if you're not familiar with the fair use doctrine, that allows a person it allows for limited use of copyrighted material without permission. Okay, so what is that time frame? Where does that fine line for a certain amount of time to be able to use that without permission?
Well,
here's-
it's in their contract what they have rights to retain because, like, you get actors and stuff that sell their likeness and their voices to be used later on. Like, they have to sign away the rights.
That was a big part of the shutdown and the strike that just happened with the actors was they're saying, you can't take this video of me and then use AI to deep fake me for all of time.
Right.
And, or extras, you pay a bunch of extras, like $50 for the day. You put them in the background of every movie ever and you never need an extra again. Like what
Right,
have you done
exactly.
to that?
Yeah.
And I get that. That makes sense to me. But just like we were just talking when you were in the other room, is that do we now start looking at the aspect of, well, don't tattoo a poem ever again. Don't tattoo a song lyric on anybody ever again, because every bit of that is published, copywritten,
Yep.
and owned not just by the person that wrote the music, but the publishing company, the record company. All of these people have stake in that. So I guess as tattoo artists, we better stop doing that altogether. And people that bash on, well, you took something from Pinterest and copied it. Okay, well, you took a song lyric and copied it and had no problem doing that.
And that's the gray area.
And yet
It's
you're gonna complain that somebody pulled a picture off of Pinterest and tattooed that on somebody, and then you're gonna bark at them because they did that. But yet you'll go and take Jane, who walks through your door and says, "Oh, I want this Metallica song lyric tattooed on me. Can you please?" And you're gladly gonna put her in your chair and you're gonna tattoo those song lyrics on her because they mean something to her.
right. And you would think that, like,
I don't understand.
on one hand, Metallica could be like, "Hey, we own that.
They
you
could
can't do that."
They could, but they're not
Or
going to.
But that's why these decisions are never really made. These lawsuits never really come to fruition because at the same time, it's fandom. It's like
yeah.
I'm not going
Right.
to convince you that I wrote Master Puppets. Anybody who reads that knows what that is, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, your tattoo artist is such a great lyricist," but on paper, on contract, does that matter? And it won't. You really won't know until you're pulled into court for something you did.
It all comes back to that photographer feeling like, oh, poor me. I didn't get recognition. I need to be recognized.
You didn't make a living off taking that picture. What makes you think I'm making a living tattooing it? But
so because he is not relevant.
Yeah.
30 years ago, it might have been a relevant thing. It might have been really cool on television. It might have even been on the Today Show. But 30 years later, it's not really relevant. And here we are. And
You're lucky everyone hasn't forgot about you by now.
And now it's become relevant again because why? He's filed a lawsuit going, well, that was mine. Well, it was your photograph. Absolutely it was, sir. By all means. And it was a great photo.
Right.
But for her to tattoo it doesn't mean that she stepped on your toes.
Right. Because at the end of the day, she's a
She
tattoo
just
artist
took a great,
who's famous for being a portrait artist who did a Miles Davis tattoo.
Yeah, she's not a photographer.
Recreating this photographer's work. She's no competition to him and his business.
They're not celebrating her ability to do lifelike drawings of people on people.
Right.
It's her skill set that she's developed, being able to transition a photo to skin.
But if you get into mass production, it's a little different because if you build an entire company off dropship selling coffee mugs that have that Metallica lyric and a Metallica album cover on them,
of course you're going to have a problem.
Right.
And you sell
because that band, then Metallica's going to turn around. They're going to be like, "Whoa, pump the brakes! What are you doing here?" Because you're making a whole lot of money off of
and they could have stamped their own
our lyric. Our lyric.
It is direct competition to their own merch sales.
Yeah. So I mean, I get that. To me, that totally makes sense. It's not like, I've got a client that comes in with a lyric or a poem, and says, "Well, I want this, and here we go." I use Metallica because Metallica was a big Napster issue, and that was all, you're releasing it beforehand and that's not yours to release. Okay, so do we get in trouble for tattooing a lyric? Do we get in trouble for tattooing a verse?
We're not duplicating their product.
No.
It, and I think it comes down to the individual.
As you said, fandom. They're paying homage to a group that means something to them.
Yeah.
And
ultimately to the band,
Yeah.
they're looking at that as going, okay, that's great. Why would we sue the artist for giving our fans something that they want?
Right.
Granted, they could pick up the Jade card and read it every day, but they want to carry that with them on their body permanently. I mean, so is that such a bad thing? I mean, I really don't think it is. No different than that same client finding an image, online that means something to them, and they bring it in and go, "Yeah, I want this image and I want that musical lyric to go with it." Okay, have we really done bad by doing that? I understand if the tattoo was done poorly.
Right.
And that's something to be said. If you're gonna mimic it, then do it justice.
Miles Davis
do
in
it
this
right.
state is gonna sue you for making it look
goofy. This is a heavy gray area, and not just in tattooing, but in like multiple genres of art. And being a professional illustrator and having a whole team of illustrators and animators and everything, the difficult thing about it is that, are they paying money to, if the client asks you to do fan art, and it's really all it comes down to. That's what that is. That guy is a Miles Davis fan. Or if somebody wants us to draw their favorite character from an anime, or when they come up to a convention and they're like, "Hey, I love these Disney characters. Can you draw these for me?"
Right.
The way we see it, and I'm not saying it's necessarily right, but it's so gray, and there's been no completed lawsuit of this sort of thing coming to fruition for anybody. There's been no record.
I heard that Disney was cracking down on all the people using Cricut machines to stick Stitch on a water bottle or whatever on Etsy.
But let's broaden that spectrum from just Disney and all this anime stuff and things of that nature. What happens when somebody goes in and gets a sports team logo? The NFL is big.
NFL is hardcore about that.
On their copyright. Yeah. And you go in and you take an image that has been photographed by the NFL and you tattoo that on something. Does that give them, because I know that you're not detailing every fan that's in the background. You're making that into something creative. Granted, you're capturing the sports play maybe.
Right.
But if it's a specific logo, you're not going to do your creative artist's take on it.
I mean,
because it's a logo.
So how many fans, how many millions of fans have their sports team logo tattooed on their body because they're a fan?
Well, that's free advertising for the sports team.
And that's the biggest difference, and that's what I was kind of getting to.
that's the thing about that. Just like this portrait.
But that portrait is not necessarily free advertising for the photographer, because no one's going to see that and be like, oh, let's go Google this photographer and see what else he's done, and maybe
But
patronize him
regardless, you still get into that aspect of, okay, even a musician, a famous musician that gets tattooed, it's that aspect that why would you not be flattered that person used your reference to tattoo that on somebody?
That's a personal ego
for
issue.
Me, is it that he's looking for a fast buck? Because maybe this photographer is just a broke ass person.
It could be, but I think
I'm
it's
looking
more of
to
an
make
ego
some fast
thing.
money off of a famous tattoo artist that's got lots of money, and this is how I'm going to make my bucks, because I haven't done anything great since 1994.
Right.
Well, and we talk
you're
about
talking,
it a lot.
what, 30 years?
I think it's somebody's feelings being hurt that people are going to see it and be like, oh, that's Kat Von D, oh, that's Miles Davis, and not be like, oh, that's that guy whose name you've said twice, like in the last 15 minutes, and I obviously can't remember what
it's a medium that people
I gave you a plug.
to.
I even gave you a plug.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's something that we talk a lot about in Clever Kaiju, is that there's a difference between buying a piece of art of a copywritten character, because I'm not going to be able to convince anybody that anyone from My Hero Academia is my original design or my own character. Like that's impossible. And that's the thing about fan art, is that they're paying me for my time and my skills that I have developed in order to provide them something that they're a fan of. And if anything, like, you think the original creators would be flattered by that. Like, oh my goodness, they paid money to have my character, my IP tattooed on their body. And you think about it, and it's like, but they're not obligated to be flattered. It's their IP. They have all the rights to
IP to intellectual property. Is
yes,
that okay?
To protect what is theirs. So there's no denying that they have the right to protect what's theirs and what they've created. Mm-hmm. But it really depends on the individual. And in the case of Miles Davis, that was a good question.
Petty. I think it's the pettiest
thing
ever.
It does seem kind of petty. It does, but at the same time, it does, because you brought up an interesting question. So the photographer is throwing a fit, but what does Miles Davis's family? What does his camp think?
Yeah,
right. And should
they really throwing
matter?
a fit?
Like,
I think they would be flattered.
Yeah.
If he's already signed off his rights for that particular photo shoot and he doesn't have any continued ownership in that particular photo, because usually that, you do that with music or with movies or with shows. You don't do that with photos. That you're going to keep receiving ongoing checks.
Well, that release is for him to use. But generally, that modeling release, I would think, I would love to have a model in here to discuss that, because they sign releases all the time to photographers. So it makes me wonder if that release was not just signed for him to use that photograph for whatever means he so choose to use it.
I don't know.
Whether it's magazines, whether it's just personal prints to sell or whatever.
Right.
But for somebody to pick that up and go, wow, this is an amazing photo, I want to transpose that and put that on somebody's skin. I think that would look amazing.
Ultimate compliment. Yeah, but
exactly.
I want to know, like, if his estate came up and said, this is petty, this is dumb, this is a great, tribute to his legacy. I'd love to sit in the courtroom. Right. And then what does that do to the case? Because if I was the judge, I'd be like,
Meanwhile, you got childhood heroes like Kevin Eastman, like I do, who will take anything that's Ninja Turtle related. You could blow into a hanky something that looks like Leonardo and show him, and he'll sign it. He'll be excited. He'll be happy to see it. Like, oh my gosh! It comes down, I think, to the individual. It comes down to the person that, because some people may see it as like, well, they're taking money from me. Well, then you can spend 8 hours drawing this character for people at a convention.
So let's look at that. So she took, I'm just going to throw a figure out there. She took $2,000.
Yeah.
Okay, one time. $2,000, and you're gonna get butthurt over $2,000
for a picture that's like 25 years old.
For a picture that you took that's 30 years old. I mean, for real.
Yeah.
This speaks more about how petty he is as opposed to what she really did. I mean, because as some of the comments that I went through and read, I mean, the consensus is pretty much the same. Yeah, it's a bunch of BS. It's petty. he's broke. This is a way to make some fast money. And to be honest with you, I really don't think that this is going to go in his favor.
No,
because if
I don't think it really ever
if it
has.
were, like I said,
Right.
how many tattoo artists out there are going to get sued now? I mean, that just opens the door. If this
Right.
goes, his way, this opens the door for everybody to get sued.
Yeah,
and
if both of them refuse to settle,
Wow.
if they have to decide in the court either way, because both of them refuse to settle, it's going to set a huge precedent either one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, the
what's-
trouble is the precedent of what's reasonable is not everybody getting sued and people using art, but the other way, like that's where the money is, because there's Kevin Eastman with his Ninja Turtle that he's proud of, but then for every Kevin Eastman there's so many more giant mega industry corporations that are outsourcing their animation to animators in Korea that don't have an ownership of Stitch or whatever
Right,
it is.
yeah.
And so the mega corporation is just trying to get the bucks out of it that they can, and they don't have this like pride of, oh, I created that.
Right.
No, they didn't they own that. It's a property right. It's not their pet. It's
Right.
their property.
It's- right.
It's
Where somebody is flattered, like if you've got a major corporation head that's like looking at it like, no, this is being stolen from us. Like, well, you didn't make it, you own it, but and it's that gray area, and I don't think it's ever going to really close. It's always going to keep changing. I know with
Right.
Potbelly Mammoth, like, would I be flattered if somebody in like California got a mammy tattoo on them? Yeah, I would find that incredibly flattering. I'd be like, oh my gosh, like there's signs that my artwork is on vehicles in other countries, and it's just like that. The idea of that is amazing. It just makes you feel good, But at the same time, if somebody were to, like make a flash sheet of all of my Potbelly Mammoth characters and just start selling them like almost like their original designs without any credit.
as opposed to like a client comes
so
in and brings the design and it's a one-off and they want this thing.
I think the key word there is replicate. Okay,
Yeah.
let's look at that. Okay, replicate. If they were to replicate Mammy and sell that, that would be an infringement. Okay, just no different than if they were to go and replicate, if they were to pull Miles Davis out of his grave and say, here, I want you to pose just like this. I'm going to get the lighting exactly right. I'm going to take this photograph myself, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to sell it to other magazines and go, look what I did. Okay, that's a replication of that photo. And they're selling it to profit off of that.
I just think I would want to know.
To replicate a tattoo on skin, you've done it once. How many people really are going to go out and get, like, I'm not lining up to go and get a Miles Davis tattoo.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
You
and
know,
that's like I have a flash sheet of Mammies on the wall in a frame. Like I would be like, oh.
Okay, so then let's okay.
That's my character. I have a whole flash sheet. Why didn't you come to me?
You have a whole flash sheet. Then somebody walks through the door and I'm like, hey, check this out. I got this. There's this flash sheet of Mammy. Let me tattoo that.
Oh, if you took my flash sheet
If
off
I were
my
to
wall?
take your flash
Yeah, that's
sheet,
a little different,
okay, so then am I in violation? And am I infringing?
Is it a copyrighted character?
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, or
You're
are
a
you going to
crappy
look at
friend.
that, or are you going to look at that and go, "Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Somebody really got that."
But if
Yeah,
somebody
they
made a
did.
flash sheet of Mammy, but in their own art style, in a way that, like,
Like fundamentally changed it
I
artistically?
think that would
It's
feel
still, like,
different to me.
I don't know.
Like, oh, cool. Especially if they're like, oh, hey, this is a flash sheet of, Mammy, a Potbelly Mammoth. And it's like, if they gave it
But
credit for
you
where
said,
it's at.
like you said, okay, well, you do a Mammy and you put a bazooka in his hand or in his
Like,
trunk
yeah,
or
well,
whatever, and there you go. So
The difference
I don't
is-
think it would hold up in court, but yeah, just generally, like
don't think I
personal
could be upset
ethics
about
wise, like you're not being a great friend. If somebody comes in the door and they want a Mammy, like the ethical thing to do
I mean, yeah, I would
is to
contact
be like,
you. I'd be like, hey, Nate,
somebody wants a
yeah.
Mammy. Like,
Yeah, right?
none of us have a right.
And
to
I
be able
guess,
to do
like,
that.
I don't ever have to worry about that situation. But it's like, if, where's the line for me? And I think the line is, like, if somebody in Springfield was slinging out Mammy tattoos, I'd be a little upset. Because I'm right here. Like, and,
because they're taking business away that could be your business.
it's not even the business of it. I think maybe if there was a fan of the comic,
right.
it's different if they were a fan and they're like, hey, I'm a fan of Potbelly Mammoth. I love this character. I did a whole flash sheet for him. I would feel different about it. Like, I would be like, okay.
Okay, but let's say that you weren't
Because
a
it's
tattoo
fan art.
artist. But if you weren't a tattoo artist,
Yeah. I think I'd still feel the same.
What? Then would you feel the same?
Yeah. I would.
You'd feel bad if somebody got that. It was floating. Let's say it was floating out.
It comes
on
down to
Pinterest,
credit.
And
They
saw Mammy on Pinterest, and they took it to a tattoo artist and said, "Hey, I want this."
Because the way I see it,
So you would feel upset.
Well, in that
No.
case,
I would feel like, because here's the thing, like, I would not feel like entitled to somebody's money for tattooing my character on somebody else's body, especially if I wasn't a tattoo artist, because the way I see it, and it's because I do fan art all the time for people, like all the time. And the way I see it is that they're not paying you for a character, an original art piece. They're paying you for your time and the skill to take this piece of art and put it on their body effectively. I would prefer if they were like, yeah, this isn't my character. This is totally from Mammy from Potbelly Mammoth. That'd be awesome. But like, Potbelly Mammoth isn't as big as Family Guy or Adventure Time, where it's like immediately when somebody sees, a Jake and Finn like tattoo, they know exactly who that is and where it is. You're not going to convince anybody that is your original or the tattoo artist's original character. I'm not as big as those. So it's like, I feel like, oh, hey, that's cool. And I'm not looking for money. I'm just looking for oh, hey, cool. I'm glad you like my stuff.
But people that go in, and I've seen people get tattoos of The Starry Night by Van Gogh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's no denying
that's public domain now because it's so old.
But hypothetically saying, I mean, it's still artwork. Whether it's public domain or not, even if it wasn't, people are still going to get it tattooed if they like it. Okay, so does that mean that all of a sudden Van Gogh's estate has every right to go, well, that's my artwork? Well, no, not really, because Van Gogh didn't really paint that on that skin. That person tattooed it on that skin.
I think it comes down to who owns the rights and
again,
how petty they
that
are.
word, replicate. They took a vision and did that on skin, and the skill set is only as far as the artist can do.
Yeah.
Again, it's not like you're going out there and you're printing off 1,000 copies of Starry Night and taking it to a comic show or whatever and putting it out there going, this is my artwork, and I'm going to sell it to you.
So in the case that somebody comes in, because Pinterest is pretty much the world's Flash. Instagram is pretty much the world's like Flash sheet that they can just scroll through, find something they like, walk in, show it to an artist, and be like, I want this here.
Because you could like you said, using that, you could take away Pinterest and go all the way back to just Flash sheets. Okay, back then, people, artists created Flash sheets, took them to shows, and sold them, sheets of Flash. So they would make money. Okay, so they would make, let's say, $20 off of a sheet. Okay, then that artist takes it back to his shop, puts it up on his wall. He gets a dozen people walk through there, and boom, 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 boom. He's made money off of 3 or 4 pieces off of that sheet of Flash.
And that's now mind you, because he sold it and it's signed too, so he's still getting his credit.
He's getting credit, but he's not. That artist isn't going out there going, "This is Joe Dingo's, Flash." No, he's not doing it. He's just tattooing it because he bought the Flash. Somebody walked in, liked it, they tattooed it, paid him the money. Now, granted, Joe Dingo only got $20 for that sheet, but Jim over here that tattooed it's already made $2,000. Okay,
yeah,
so
but that's part of the market.
He translated his service into a good, because at the end of the day, we're providing a service. We have a limited amount of time. We're not doing the fastest art form there is. And just physically, like in terms of the amount of tattooing you can do in the day, it's not the same as painting or something. So like he's taken his good or his service, he's translated into a good that he can mass produce and now sell. And that was his decision. He didn't have to do that. But I think that's totally fine. That, of course, if he would have just tattooed it himself, he would have made more off each tattoo than each Flash sheet. But he could only do so many tattoos in a day.
Yeah,
but
still, he sold it once for $20.
It's $20, and he turns around. I mean, if you were to take that sheet, it's almost like the Nike swoosh. Okay, Guy creates a Nike swoosh, sells it for $10, sells all the rights for $10. Here, it's yours.
Right.
Okay. That Nike swoosh now has made millions. It's on everything. Right. Okay. But that guy signed away that right to that swoosh and gave it to that person. A sheet of flash, if it's one sheet and they want to sell it for $1,000 and go, here, I'm giving you everything, that's great. Then that's becomes your sheet to sell. That guy's got 12 sheets sitting there. Okay, he's not selling the right to that.
I think he would.
He can sign it. But okay, that would be like saying, okay, if
Isn't
I'm going to
that why he's selling it so people can use it in their shop?
He's selling it so people can use it, but to copyright something, and then for me, I'm just looking at it from the copyright standpoint. If you're going to design something and you're just going to go out there and go, here, do this and put it out there for everybody to use, because I've seen people look at Pinterest that way and go, well, you're copying, you're doing this, you're taking this person's artwork and you're copying. Okay, if it's there and available for you to use, why the big stink? And I'm sure that I'm going to catch all kinds of flack for this. I'm sure people will probably hate me for all of that.
It's not hard to look up the licensing agreement.
You can, I know you can, but it's there. If they don't want it out there and put out there to be used, then don't put it on there. Don't make it ready. If you want your art to be seen, then put it in art shows, put it in things like that. Sell it as art. Don't put it on the biggest generated, app that's out there that is run rampant all over, the world that people use on a regular basis. I mean, it's just like the AI. I mean, you can take the AI and put it out there and then say, and pull from 20 different photos, build your own and go, well, this is mine. Well, no, it's not kind of really yours. You kind of designed it. You did a few keystrokes and there you go. Whereas somebody were to pull something off of Pinterest, look at it, build it, construct it, and then transpose it into a tattoo, you've done far more than a few keystrokes.
Right. And this is the touchy subject with AI, at least in the beginning, because like for a lot of, especially digital artists, but a lot of traditional artists did this too. There's a method called photo bashing, which sounds worse than it really is. It's not like we're insulting photos, but it's what we're doing is we take, like we have a composition in our head, or we have something like something that we want to recreate. So we look for references on like Google or Pinterest or whatever. Find references of pieces of things that we want in this composition, and we cut them all out and assemble them like puzzle pieces to build this final image of what we're wanting. Take that image, slide it to the second monitor, and then using it as a reference, draw our original piece by hand. By like using it just so that we have everything in front of us. The last thing that any of these artists would do is take that original photo bash composition of like 5 or 6 different images, like pieced together, and slap it online and be like, this is mine. I made this. Yeah, you made a composition and like there's some merit to that and it's interesting, but you're not going to convince anybody that you drew this statue with this moon, with this owl, like, because clearly you just grabbed pieces of things and meshed it all together. The composition is something.
But I think there's a difference between saying yours and creating, because you can sit there and create and take 7 different images and create it and build it into something that is plausible for you to use. Yeah. Does it mean that it's yours? No, you're not stating that it's yours. People can go and post it and go, look what I made. Okay, yeah, you did make that. It's not like it just threw itself together. Right. You constructed it, you made it, you put it out there. You're not really claiming that it's your artwork, but you're claiming that, look, I made this. Would anybody like to get this?
But
you're not.
Sure, and that's like.
I mean, it's not like you got to go and post credit to this person, this person, this person, this person.
But that's the fine line that many people do. If any of the 6 people that made any piece of this composition that I'm claiming is mine was like, no, that dude, that's my owl. But you're not, again,
statue. You're not claiming that it's yours. You're
But
claiming
yeah.
you're claiming I made this out of all of this stuff.
But how many people do?
Oh, there. Oh, no, I'm not saying that
and
there's
that's
not
the,
people out there that literally will go. I mean, there's people that will steal other people's tattoos that they've
claim
done
them, yeah.
and put them on a page and
Yeah.
go, "This is mine."
We've
That's
seen portfolios of stuff pulled off of Google.
that's a load. I mean, that happens every day.
But
So I get that.
at the same time, like when it comes to AI, it's no different. It's only that instead of like 5 or 6 elements put together, it's millions scraped across every reach of the internet. Basically, the entire database of humanity.
And then so then within
to a point
that,
where it's so obscure and so like impossible to pick out all the individual things, but you know they're there.
right.
It's more exhausting and more just like painful to nitpick all the pieces. It's so they win by default.
So then, like you were saying, that all transposes. You get this, and this is where I think it divides itself. Is that I could take an AI piece and go, okay, I'm going to tattoo this to the best of my skill set and my ability. So I tattoo that, and I make money. Am I infringing on all those artists? But yet, the person that goes and builds that AI piece creates prints and then goes out there and continually sells them, claiming that it's theirs. That's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that line lies with Pinterest. And you finding all of these other designs, you create them, you build them, and then you transfer that over into tattooing. It's not like I'm taking that whole piece and then going, I'm going to go out here and sell 1 million copies of
Right.
that and go, well, that's all mine. I made all of that. No, you didn't make all of that.
I think part of the source of frustration is the time, and that at the end of the day, time is money, and it's really hard to make a living as an artist. Yeah. So when you see the old-fashioned way of, like, oh, I took all these different elements, I looked at all these reference photos of these creatures, and then I drew it myself. Or even if you want to go more purist to it, like, I drew all this from scratch without, I looked at an animal in the zoo, like the most source you can, versus somebody that clicks a button, it spits it out. Yes, they have to craft their input and whatever time that takes. You're not going to convince me that crafting the right sentence input takes as long as drawing it from scratch and learning to draw. And then they crank that out, send it through a drop ship company on Etsy or whatever, and it's getting printed on tote bags, and they're never actually seeing or touching any of those materials, or they're selling it as coloring sheets on Etsy, and they're making money on it. Just the sheer quantity that these people are allowed to produce in a very short amount of time, it's frustrating to see that. And then it's hard to know how much of it is just jealousy, and that, things change. And whenever photography became big, painters got upset too.
Yeah.
And now photography is acceptable. And on one hand, like, yeah, it's changing and we do have to make adjustments and we have to get used to that as much as it hurts. But also I'm kind of grateful that our art medium is a little harder to replicate.
Yeah.
At least
that we can put our arms in a printer.
Yeah, because like National Geographic put out a thing on their Insta not too long ago, and they had 4 close-up shots of a cheetah, and you had to pick out which one was AI, and I guessed wrong. And I was like, I'm pretty sure no. And so it's like, I feel for the people that are doing stuff like nature photography, that are literally putting themselves in harm's way with incredibly expensive equipment, having all these extra shots and going over and laying in a field in Africa with some wild animals and having to take these pictures. And then all of a sudden somebody goes boop, and they have one that's just as good.
Yeah.
If not better, because now you don't have to photo edit all the lighting.
But at the same time, do you feel like when you have this new wave of technology that like devalues the way things are, do you feel that the things in the past get more value? Like, do you think like an original painting on canvas will be more sought after? Do you think attention will switch back?
Photography's definitely had its heyday, and now digital art's been at it for quite some time, and Van Gogh's still worth a lot of money.
I mean,
so
records, when everything went to MP3s.
Things completely irrelevant, yeah.
When things
Vinyls are still selling.
Yeah, I know. And that's the difficult thing with like when it comes to like AI, for example, like best case when it first started, I think the issue would have been like, well, what they need to do is they need to you could originally search in databases where all the information is being scraped from and collected. And you could search, and all of us in Clever Kaiju did all like searched our work. Everything we worked on is in the
And
algorithm.
you can't like opt out.
You can.
You can.
Yeah, and that was at the time.
Huh.
And originally, the plan was like, well, maybe we'll reach a point where legislation will eventually get passed, and maybe it'll all get shut down, or like a cease and desist on all these programs, these robots scraping the internet.
It's not all contained in our country.
But that's the thing is like best case, we're thinking, well, maybe that would be the route that it went. Or
this is a worldwide thing.
Or
This isn't
AI,
just a U.S. thing.
You can't shut down like a Korean website
Yeah.
because you don't like what it does for the copyright.
or AI could only be these platforms pull from a server that are approved with content uploaded by the artists themselves with permission, or some sort of like compensation program built in to be compensated every time their work gets scraped into an
The
AI
amount of
generation.
manual effort it would take
Which
to manage those communications and the paperwork, and to be like mailing everybody
But
a
then how
check
do you
for like
break down
0.03 cents every
what-
time.
what that artist gets, paid,
Right.
because it's like they could take a fraction of one of their pictures, paintings, whatever, and use a fraction of that. Well, is that
Right.
fraction really worth?
Well, and here's the thing, like worst case, if it all got shut down, they've made their money. They'll pay a fine and they'll walk out. Like it's an act now, apologize later kind of setup where at this point now, especially they have made billions on this industry.
Oh, of course they have.
There's nothing that it's going to like, oh, okay, even if they did shut it down, but I don't think anymore they really can't, because it has caught so much fire and it's been used so heavily that AI is pretty much cannibalizing on itself now. Everything that's being generated in AI is
already been
being pulled
generated,
and it's created its own bed
It's a
of
photocopy
content.
of a photocopy of a photocopy, and there's so many fingers.
And now it's like, and it's so saturated with where the original, like they've clouded it. There's no way to track
To
where
the
the
point
stuff
to
is.
where they've hidden it.
Where any data that shows where this information was scraped from, as far as it knows, it's its own entity. It's its own IP now, and it's pulling from its own content. And it's like, and it's just gotten out of control. And that's the thing, is you can't get away from it. You can't escape it.
Yeah, because
Like,
you see that stuff leak into Pinterest.
but to
That AI generated art is all over Pinterest.
everybody has their own AI,
Yeah.
and you can even tell what Mid-Journey artwork looks like. You can tell what Canva artwork looks like. Every one of these programs has its own set of styles now, to where they now own whatever. Like each of these AI programs own their own respective styles. Like I could look at something and be like, oh, Mid-Journey. And I know it looks different than Canva, or it looks different than, however many. Like, and that was ideal. Like maybe that was a plan from the beginning, where it's replicating and it's cannibalizing on itself so hard that it creates something entirely of its own. And that's kind of the definition of AI.
But also,
Like,
they're probably eventually not going to be able to make the same money off of it, because somebody's always going to make it cheaper or freer or free with ads or whatever. Like, there's always going to be somebody
Sure.
else that cannibalizes their thing that they've already cannibalized, and that's just the nature of it.
And the only thing is that eventually, like, I don't know, original artwork by individuals, like oil painting, will become huge again.
I think that the AI cat is so far out of the bag that as individual artists, you have to figure out what your own personal ethics and your moral compass of, I know that if I look online, I'm not going to take somebody else's tattoo that they've done and copy it as best I can identically. Like, I'll take ideas from places and try to alter it a bit. But that's just what I personally feel best doing.
Because,
But I don't, like I'm not going to toss a penny to the person who made Procreate and to the person who made Apple Pencils every time I do a piece of digital art. And we're all taking inspiration from different places.
Right.
And at the end of the day,
And
like,
that's kind of that gray area that they fall back on.
you can't trace the tree of exactly every person that person learned from and toss a penny to their high school art teacher that inspired them, that got them to the place that they made the thing that somebody else altered, you can't.
Well, and you
It's a-
wonder, because the rule of copyright, right, is 20%. If you change it 20%, it's, and it used to be 20. It's probably even less than that now.
How do you measure 20% of it?
It's-
Well, and we
piece of
talk
very
about this in
subjective,
kaiju all
yeah.
the time, where it's like, you know,
I mean, is 20% an eyeball? I mean, is it a
right.
chin? Is
it's an extra finger.
right? I
You
mean,
know, like, and that's the thing is, like, in every tattoo artist, you know, they pull
oh,
something.
I get it. It's a double chin. I got it,
Every
20%.
every tattoo artist that has somebody come in and they're like, I want this. They're like, it's a lot of artistic integrity comes from, okay, but I'm gonna make some changes, or I'm gonna adjust it, something that looks cooler, something that fits your body more, something that's a little more original, so I'm not just copying. But not everybody's gonna do that.
Right.
And a lot of that is simply because what they bring you is important. Because if you're going to tell a tattoo artist, like, oh, well, you're just not an artist, you're not creative. How many of us have, like, folders, binders of original artwork sitting in our workstations that we would love to tattoo? Original
But that-
ideas
and I get it. Yeah,
that we put dozens of hours
but
into
nobody wants.
But yet
wants
it's-
to get that.
And it's not necessarily the quality of it. It's that
It's just-
a lot
right.
of the people we tattoo aren't artists, and that's fine.
Right.
And so maybe they're having trouble picturing that. And if they saw it, maybe they'd think it's cool. But what they've seen fully fleshed out and they know what they're getting is something that they found on Google, as
Right.
opposed to like, hey, make me a peacock or whatever. I'm going to trust you with it. That takes a lot. And so
Yeah.
we have our big folder of stuff, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be more people wanting,
The things
Stitch
they know.
or
What they've seen
Captain
off
Jack
of the
Sparrow,
internet,
or they're going to
off of
want that.
Google, off
I
of
mean,
Pinterest,
several
off
years
of
of doing my
AI.
several years of doing my original content, like I have, published work. That was one of the hardest things doing conventions with, was that I was offering something that looked cool and it was adorable and it looked like something that should be on TV, and I aimed it for that reason.
Right.
They thought that I was like an executive trying to sell a TV show. Like, people were looking online for a TV series, Potbelly Mammoth, and I'm like, no, this is all just me. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, they like it, they think it's cool,
But they're still
and-
going to
and
come
they
up to you and ask
celebrate.
for
See?
Spider-Man.
but they still always walk up and ask for Spider-Man.
Because,
Right.
but that,
Or
they have
Rick
a
and Morty
personal
making out
attachment
or
to
something.
that. It's-
Because, right.
yeah.
Because people, when they go to these environments, when they go to tattoo shops, when they go to art, they're going to immediately recognize what they themselves are a fan of. They're going to,
Yeah.
when they go to conventions, they want to see specific things. And it's not insulting. It's just that they don't understand what Potbelly Mammoth is.
Yeah.
They don't understand what a lot of this original stuff is. The difference being is there are people that come up to me and like, I don't care what you do, I'm just a fan of you as an artist. And that's the thing, is I found out in Potbelly Mammoth, the book itself, most people that follow me and are big fans or whatever, that follow
They're a fan
everything
of
I
you.
work,
They're not a fan of the
they
the
have
book.
never read the book.
They're just a fan of
Most
you.
of them haven't. Like, they've bought the books, they bought the T-shirts, they bought all the merch, everything that I've ever offered. They've bought. My own mother, who for a long time went years telling all her friends, taking books and or taking her book, reading it several times, handing it to her friends, like, talked heavily about my book and was celebrating, so proud of her artist son who has a published book. Never actually read it, which is odd, which was like, but at the same time, it helped me understand that, like, she's just a fan of me. And she was, I even put her in the book. My parents are actually in it.
You know,
as
I think a
characters.
lot of people. I think that clients come to you not because of what you draw. They come to you because of your skill set
Right. And that's a lot
and
when it comes to tattooing.
how well you can execute a tattoo.
Right.
It's not, oh, well, you're this great Van Gogh or whatever. They don't care. It's the fact
Right.
that you can execute their idea and make it look great.
Because they get
And
hit
that's
with
it. Bottom line.
inspiration.
I mean, like working in Kansas City when I did the Kansas City show, I sat next to another artist. We used, literally, no joke, we used and tattooed the same exact model's face on two different clients. He was tattooing the same model's face that I was tattooing on my client, that he was tattooing on his. So it just tells you right there. I mean, it's just these images are out there.
How many
And people
Poseidon
want
statues are there for
People
reference?
want to use them, and so you do. And how you choose to use them is what separates it from everything else.
Yeah.
You can
Right.
take the image and go, okay, I'm going to attach it to this and this and this. Well, that's going to make it different than what he's doing because he's attaching it to this, this, and this.
Right.
And I'm sure
So-
your contrast was different. Your values were different. Your palettes weren't
It's
identical.
Well, it
Like,
was all different.
it should be different if you're
but the
putting your
models,
player on it as
but
an
the
artist.
model's face was the exact same.
It was
so-
still Susan Smith from Google at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you consider, like what people actually coming up to, when people walk up to your table or when people ask you for a commission or whatever, it's just like it's just like, hey, here's a thing that I care about. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh man, this would be cool to have this as a tattoo. This would be cool to have in a frame. And more often than not, you know what? I know somebody who can do this. Or I know somebody who can, it's like, it would be cool if this was like more cartoon style. Wait, I know somebody.
Right.
And it's not them just trying to throw money at something for cheap so much as them celebrating their fandom and having a connection with you as an artist. Like there's a pride to being like, yeah, I actually reached out to this specific artist and they did this.
And especially as a tattoo artist, because if you commission someone to do an art piece, you risk losing your time, you risk losing your money.
Yeah.
And then there's also the risk of like, if it's supposed to be a gift, you have issues, whatever. But if they do a terrible job, you just commission somebody else to do it.
Right.
And it sucks that you're out that money, but with a tattoo artist, you're trusting them to put that on you forever. Like, you're looking at least a real expensive cover up or laser removal if you pick the wrong one. So yeah, there's a lot of that. Like, okay, I have this cool idea. I'm not exactly sure what I want. I think it's this, this, and this. David, I trust you to put this on me.
Right.
And not, physically injure me, make me sick, and
Right.
to leave me with beautiful artwork I'm going to be proud to have on my body.
They're
forever.
investing
So, yeah,
in you
again,
as a
they're
service,
coming
as a
to you-
professional.
they're coming to you because of your skill set, not because of what the person that drew. I mean, for all they know, the person that drew the artwork may not even be a tattoo artist. They're just somebody that draws. Okay, great. So then what are you going to do with that? I like that piece of art, so now I got to go and seek this person out that's halfway across the world. Go, hey, can I get this from you so I can go and get it? It just, people don't, we live in a day and age that people don't have time for that.
Yeah.
They're not going to go and seek out Joe Schmo clear across, in China going, hey, can I use this? No, they're just going to take the image. They're going to find somebody that can execute that for them, and they're going to do it. And that's it. Bottom line.
That's what you had said about supply and demand is that, we can supply all the stuff that nobody knows about or even really, and it's not because it's bad art, like you said, or because, but like, it's if somebody walks in and goes, I want this Kermit the Frog, and you're like, no, I don't do that because
I got to talk to
then
Jim Henson.
they're
first.
just gonna turn around and go somewhere else and find
somebody
they
to
have a
tattoo
demand.
Kermit the Frog.
And if you don't supply it, they're gonna find somebody else to supply it. And it's like, yeah, there's being a professional artist and having integrity, but there's also a business where it's that Kermit the Frog is your meal that night.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're not going to convince anybody that you created, you're not going to get in a fight with anybody that you
because
created
that's not
Kermit the Frog.
that's not the point.
But-
they're there to get it tattooed. You're not there to
Right.
convince them, oh, that's my Kermit.
How many times has that Kermit the Frog opened the gate for, okay, yeah, what else do you have? Like
what else
you
can
create a relationship and you create a personal, they come in and they're just testing the waters with these little things they find on Pinterest. And then once they get the vibe and they're like, I like this person, I really like this artist, then they start diving into you and they become a fan of you. Suddenly they're asking you, what do you have? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Boom. And there's a whole stack of, so anybody who says that these artists aren't, creative or original, look,
It's got to start somewhere.
We're blue-collar artists.
You're always going to have those that are Pinterest kids that will always turn to Pinterest.
because not everybody's artists, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Not everybody can think visually. They see something, they're inspired by it, they want to trap it, they're like, boom, let's do that.
And not everybody has a huge budget either.
Right.
A lot of people come in and they want something, or maybe they haven't been tattooed a lot of times and they're concerned about the pain level or what their body's going to tolerate. They don't come in and say, that whole leg sleeve that you designed that was like, let's start with that. A lot of people come in and they're like, I saw this thing and it's these 3 little stars. Can I have the 3 little stars? And it's like, it's not going to be the pinnacle of your artistic career, but you're going to make that person walk out real happy with their experience and their happy little 3 stars. Maybe they'll want a leg sleeve someday.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it always ends up moving. And some people just want fandom stuff to make them feel good. And that's perfectly fine. That's a service. We're not stealing anybody's art. It's like, clearly that I didn't create this franchise.
They knew that.
But I
They knew
have
that
worked
when they
for
walk
years
in with the design.
But there is
to develop the skills to put this on them out of fandom. And that's always going to be a valid argument. And that's why these cases never really go much further than that.
I think when there is a direct competition element, though,
Right.
and it's a continuum. So, if somebody asked for a piece to be designed by a tattoo artist across the street and they had their design, they came over here with it and just tried to get a lower quote. That's why a lot of tattoo artists won't send you your design ahead of time. At the tattoo convention, I was young and green and didn't know any different. Free-handed some text on a guy's arm. He's like, cool, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. I got to grab some cash. Then he went around to a bunch of other booths, and I had a tattoo artist tell me, like, he was going around to other booths and asking for quotes to see if he could find somebody to undersell me to tattoo over my freehand text on him. And there was artists that told him, like, no, I'm not going to tattoo somebody else's freehand on you.
That touches on another topic of why there's minimums at conventions.
Yeah.
Is so stuff like that does not happen.
Yeah.
So that's
an issue, and it's like, nobody should be undercut because they drew something on somebody and now they want to go and shop it around to 30 other artists that are there to see if they can get a better deal.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. But I mean, when it all comes back to like you said, the AI and taking other people's stuff and replicating it and then trying to sell it to you to use and have the rights to, when they don't really own the rights to it in the first place, I think is a load of BS.
Yeah. I will always defend people's rights
or then
to
to
protect
turn
their...
around and offer it to another tattoo artist to do for absolutely free.
Right.
You don't get that luxury of building something with a few keystrokes, going out there, putting it out there, claiming that it's yours, and then offering it, an artist saying, well, God, that'd be cool to tattoo. And then them coming to you and saying, well, I'll sell you the rights to all of that for X amount of dollars. And then, you're just like, well, wait a second, that's kind of really not just yours. It's a bunch of different people's artwork. You keystroke that in and computer did that for you. And then, weeks later to go down the road and see that same scenario come unfolded to where that same person's going, oh, well, yeah, I'd love to see a tattoo artist do this. Okay, well, wait a second, you weren't going to sell that to them. You were just going to let them do that.
Right, but you want to charge me $500 for something that you didn't actually make.
Yeah,
like it's yours.
Yeah,
but yet you'll look at that guy, that's your best friend, and go, yeah, man, tattoo that. That would be so awesome, and I won't charge you nothing for it.
Yeah, I'm not about to pay somebody for the rights to their AI that they may.
Me neither. If you want to AI generate something, and I think it's cool, and I think I can execute that and tattoo it, by all means, let's go.
I have had a client, though, pay for someone's original artwork on Etsy and bring it to me and say, are you comfortable doing this artwork that's by this other person? Yeah. I paid for it, just so you know, I paid the $10 or whatever to get the rights to this piece that's intended as a design to use on tattooing or stamps or stationery or whatever. And I was like, yeah, that's fine with me. Like,
overall, I think this is kind of to sum it up, and I don't really know if, this is always a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different people in a lot of different industries that feel wildly different. But when it comes to, at least my experience of being, like a professional freelance artist and a tattoo artist, is that when it comes to copyright, like, just use your gut. Like, just be aware that,
don't be a dick. That's the official rule.
They say, change it 20% and it's out of legal hands. But it's just like, legal stuff aside, like, when it comes to, a fan, like, hey, I really love this thing and I know that you could draw it. I really like your art style. Can you do that for me? Me personally, absolutely. Because you're coming to me for my time in learning my skill and my particular art style. The character is just the connection between you and me. Like, I'm not selling this character. I'm not selling this IP. I'm selling my time and my skills.
I get that, but you're not going to go through and you're not going to take an anime character and you're not going to draw it in your own little, animated version of how you would see it in the movie or how it was printed on screen or whatever. You're not going to go through and redraw that
You're not going to replicate it, right?
and move it and change that and make
Right.
no, because they came to you with that image and said, "This is what I want."
But I know your style, and I know
Yeah,
that I know
that you can personally execute this
Yeah.
and make it look as close to this as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
And you
great.
can. And
Because
maybe
that's
somebody's going to say, I want you to take the guy from Street Fighter and have him fighting Miss Piggy. Can you draw that for me? And you're going to have to tweak things and draw your own.
Sure.
But the vast majority of them, they're like, hey, here's this picture
Right.
of this, this character from this movie that's from my childhood or that I really love. And the character's already drawn. Like, you don't.
It's there. You're not going to alter that. You're not going to change it. You're not going to alter any portrait because that right there is a cardinal sin.
Yeah.
You don't take it and flip it. You don't make it, flip it around so it's backwards and put it somewhere and go, okay, here we go. No, the whole purpose of tattooing a portrait is to do it exactly like you see it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no altering it. There's no changing it 20%. You're not going to take a photograph that somebody took in a field of a barn and they come to you and go, here, look, I want this image on me. You're not going to go, here, let me add this tree back here and do this because that's not what they wanted.
Right.
They want this. And so that's
And that's
what
the
you
difference
give
is
them.
that, not just any printer.
I guess you could look at it as like a haircut. You don't go into a hairstylist and go, okay, I want my hair cut this specific way. And then when they're done, it's not cut like you wanted it. It's cut similar, but there's a notch cut over here they
or
wanted
your
to put
head
there.
is warped differently. And
it doesn't work like that.
they, and that's until we can get prints on our bodies like we do out of a printer in our supply room, then, I mean, that's just going to be the way it is. And but when it comes to the copyright issue, that's pretty much like the artist's fallback is that you're paying me for my time and you're paying for it's a service. I'm not selling you a product of Miss Piggy because obviously that's not my product to sell, but I am giving you a service. And when it comes to AI, it's so deeply embedded in everything and it's feeding off itself so hard that it's going to be impossible to shut down. It's only going to get bigger or grow. Not to mention the fact, the very tools that we use. And look, the fact is, and I mean, in my opinion, the fact is AI is an incredible tool, whether it is you're composing ideas to use as reference. But really, like anybody who uses Procreate or any of the Adobe products, so much of those programs are built on like background generating tools and, the healing brush tool.
It's all equations too. It's all equations.
And what it does is it literally takes, you select where you want with a marquee tool, and then you generative fill, and all it does is it uses AI to take all the material around it and generate what it thinks should go in that space instead.
And remove the pooping dog from the background of your wedding
based
photo.
on what's around it.
Yeah.
That's AI.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible tool. You can't tell me that anybody wants to spend 6 hours layer masking by hand everything. You might as well just cut it all out of magazines and just take
Right.
I mean,
Well, and part of that is the art becomes more accessible to more people.
Right.
Because if you can do amazing art and it doesn't take you 100 hours to do it, more people are going to be able to make art
it's
part
that
of their
old
lives.
adage, time is money.
Yeah,
Right.
time is money.
If you can do it and generate it quicker and take it from point A to point B
Right.
faster than normal, by all means,
I mean,
let's go that route.
That's that line between being an artist and being a professional is that, these people that are commissioning you, they don't know or really care that you put, 10,000 hours into your craft, into
No,
your
we're not
skill.
paid for our drawing time. We're only paid for tattooing
They
time.
care about
So-
whether or not you can produce a product that they want. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're paying for, is that skill. And you may share fandoms. How many times have you tattooed something you know nothing about or couldn't even care less
A
about?
lot.
Right.
I mean, how many? It's one of those. There'll always be that gray area when it comes to, and it's like, and I absolutely support anybody who feels the need to step up and defend themselves and defend what's theirs and anything that they create. I'm a creator. I have IPs. I will defend them. But at the same time, where I'm just flattered that my character's on the back of a jeepney in the Philippines, someone else may be upset that there was even like a post made about, with their character. Like it comes down to the individual person, and maybe it's petty, maybe it's just business. But oftentimes you really don't know what toes you're stepping on until it's too late.
Yeah.
But we live in a culture now, especially in the art community and across all art communities. I mean, we've got in Kaiju, we've got people who are like Hollywood special effects artists. We got game designers, we got animators, we got everybody is using tools, whether they know it or not, as part of their daily lives that are all AI. I have a friend who generates backgrounds, crowd scenes that they know are all generated with AI.
Right.
And it's awful because he is providing a service knowing that these faceless, nameless people were generated from somewhere else that, and it's like, but that's the business,
But
right?
if
You're not
he
going to
was
convince.
to manually draw every single person,
Right.
he couldn't make any money off of it.
Right.
And there would be somebody somewhere else that would be generating it.
And they're not
going
going to, and they're not going to put 20,000 people in seats and pay them as extras.
No.
But I think there's some value to, like, as a parent, the thing I always hear is if you're worrying that you're not a good parent and then you're going to screw up your kids and you're a bad parent, you're probably a decent parent. It's the ones that don't care at all, that are not doing a great job. And so I think it's the same. Like, if you're actually putting concern into this and trying to make ethical choices and not screw over the artist next to you, it's probably not something you need to be melting yourself in anxiety over and worrying that but you know if you're straight up stealing from the artist next to you.
There's always going to be that line. There is that line of integrity. And it's obvious when those that are just jumping on a bandwagon. Like, I can just type something in a search prompt and then Google itself is an AI generator.
Yeah.
And it's, and I like the fact that everybody is able to just like, for the most part, people are like, oh, that's interesting. And then they just move on. Not like, this is blowing my mind. Like, and it's bad because then you get a lot of original art that isn't AI and people are like, it just completely devalues everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that's where oil painting and traditional art will kind of head back into the spotlight.
Maybe.
People will be.
Well, and there's certain artists I follow, especially neo-traditional artists, because I really love that I see these super original pieces that they've put out, and I'm so impressed by them. But at the end of the day, it's a niche market, and they're able to do that because they're so good at what they do. People are coming in from all over the world to get that. But if you're in a small town and you don't have clientele flying in for you, being a portrait artist is always going to keep you busy. It's going to put bread on the table at the end of the day. And you didn't have to spend 20 hours drawing before you got to that portrait appointment. Like, you might have had to adjust the contrast and the values and draw up your stencil, but like, the amount of work that goes into prepping for a portrait versus the amount of work that goes into prepping for an original neo-trad piece is completely different.
Yeah.
Well,
everybody can
your
portray
mindset's totally different.
Right.
It's got to be different.
What you're paying for then is the artistic skill, because it
Right.
takes a really talented, experienced artist to nail a portrait properly. But there's always going to be people that can appreciate an accurate portrait, and there's far fewer people that can appreciate these original pieces. And so there's still value to it. Absolutely.
I
Like,
mean,
you're making somebody happy. by putting
You
a picture
have
on.
people that want original art, and you have people that want stuff that they find off of the
Stuff that they know.
Right,
And stuff
and
that
stuff
they.
that-
Yeah, and I'm
It's-
gonna get really stoked about an Art Nouveau inspired swan, but a lot of people aren't, and I
Right.
know that, and that's
Yeah,
not
right.
And
everybody's
maybe
thing.
one day when Potbelly Mammoth is on Netflix and it's a big deal, then everybody will want my original stuff. But until then, it's like, all right, yeah, I'll do Kermit the Frog. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
because I'm a fan too, whatever. But it's one of those things. Like, for example, you did you did a tattoo, like a huge piece of Zeus recently. Let me just like ask you, when it comes to like Zeus or Hades or Poseidon, Zeus and Poseidon get confused a lot. Like, how many references are there really as far as like statues, like the statue drawing? I mean, there's a lot of paintings and drawings, but like maybe three or four of like, if I want a statue of Aphrodite,
Right.
how many statues of Aphrodite are there for reference?
Well, you can't get too crazy because nobody's going to recognize it unless it's that iconic, specific statue that everyone recognizes. Because it's
But
not
they
like
still
somebody
want something
saw her down
original.
the street. Yeah.
So we're like, oh my gosh, like, so, you know, like, what if AI was like, okay, here's that Zeus statue in a different pose, something that nobody has seen before. You can't be like, that's tempted. That's tempting, isn't it? Like,
You say like you can't be mad about it.
you can't, like, I mean,
It's
you know, would Michelangelo be turning in his grave? Maybe.
Michelangelo spent a lot of time on David, but yeah, there's not a lot of Michelangelos in Springfield that were.
But how many
fighting for
Davids are there?
competition.
Like, how many different, you know, like, and that's the thing. It's like I'm in a weird like you could tattoo the same lion face. How many tiger faces are pretty much the same lion or tiger across the board? There's only a few really like popular ones that people really want or care about. But what if there was a means without having to take a camera into the face of a lion?
right.
To
And
take
go,
a
here,
picture.
I'm going to take this photo.
Especially if you're wanting a more obscure animal. There's a
Yeah.
bajillion bears and lions out there, but like I was looking for a reference on a clouded leopard, and those suckers are endangered, and they're in the jungle where the lighting is bad. And so,
Yeah.
you know, you've only got so many photos, half of which are grainy. Is the cat looking the right direction? What's the lighting
Right.
like? And so when you have this opportunity to pull something that's mashing these nature photos and you can get it in the pose you want, that's really helpful as a reference because
It's
I don't
just-
have
yeah.
one of those laying around that I can
Right.
pose up and
Right,
So
here,
that's the
let me
thing,
make a
it's-
trip to
it's-
the zoo really fast.
there isn't one. Yeah,
It's a
there's like
valuable
a couple
tool,
in
you
the
know?
country. Yeah, so
You
it's
get a
like,
solid image, and then you tattoo that on somebody. It's a lion or a tiger face or a statue that nobody has seen
You know,
before.
and to be honest
but they
with
know
you,
what
they,
it is.
they it's I think they don't care.
No.
I think
don't-
what it really truthfully boils down to is how you execute that piece
Right.
for them.
Only artists
They don't
give a shit about
They
this.
don't give a crap where you got the photo from. They don't
Right.
care where your reference came from. It's the fact that you're going to put it on them, and they've got all the faith in the world that it's going to turn out the way they are expecting it
And
to.
that's what they're trusting you
You know,
with.
they're not. You know, they're not gonna here put this portrait on me, and it's gonna look like a stick figure. With a bandana on it.
we got one tiny arm and one big arm. I don't know what's going on
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
I think that's just at the end of the day, it boils down to your execution and how you execute the tattoo itself. Not a matter of, oh, well, I went and ripped this off from somebody, or I ripped this off from that person. It's how well can you execute what I'm wanting? And it looked good on me. Because
And that's across the
ultimately
board.
they're going out there to show it to people, and people aren't going to again look at it and go, oh, he stole that from so and so.
Right.
They're going to look at that and go, wow, that's done really well. That's what they're looking at.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not going, oh, well, yeah, they stole that from so and so that put that on Jazz Weekly.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
no, they don't care. It's the fact that wow, that's done really well.
Right. Which painter did that portrait of George Washington? You don't
who
care.
did that? Yeah.
It's is it a good
Exactly.
tattoo or not is what people
It's-
care about.
that's
I've
what it
never seen
boils
the
down
first
to.
president of the United States before. Your tattoo artist is a great historian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where did he get that photo? Because man, I need to go and talk
I mean,
to
art
the
is
person
a
that
product.
took it.
It's not just, and products generate, and it's a business, and that's, which sounds cold. And like I said, maybe I'd find it, maybe I'd feel differently if I switch on Netflix and see my own cartoon on like, whoa.
But of
Well,
course,
they're
that would be
completely ripping it off, yeah.
that's a completely different ball game.
Yeah, but I guess I don't have to worry
it's
about that,
not-
yeah, because I'm still small potatoes.
It's not like picking out a tattoo and tattooing it. People want it because you're talented at what you do and executing that piece of art, not because, oh well, you stole that damn photograph from somebody And now I'm super concerned because now that portrait of Corey Taylor has been ripped off from whatever photographer, and now I've got to walk around and worry that, no, they don't care about that. It's the fact that you took that Corey Taylor portrait, executed it on them, and made it look extraordinarily good.
You mean Corey Taylor wasn't standing next to you at your tattoo chair?
No, he should have
perfectly
been,
still,
I guess, yeah.
While you...
While I
Maybe
looked
like
at
one
him
of your
with that
French
mask
girls.
and went, here, I need you to recreate that pose so I can
Right.
just look and...
You mean that wasn't
and do
your
it.
original that human being in a mask wasn't your original creation?
You did not birth Corey Taylor.
Sorry, Corey, man. I guess I'll be hearing from your attorneys in a week.
But yeah, like if you're making art for art's sake and it brings you joy and you love doing it, then try not to let AI get under your skin. Keep doing what you're doing. If you're trying to do it to make money, unfortunately, you're going to have to evolve with supply and demand and keep changing as new tools come out. And
Right.
if you're etching things in stone, it's going to take you a lot longer than the person that has a laser engraver, but nobody's beating up the guy that has a laser engraver. And it's
Right.
just,
Right.
you find either the hipster niche that wants things the old school way you're doing it, which will always be a thing.
That'll always be a market.
Or you find a way to do it, more efficiently so that you can get your product out as fast as possible and in the quantity you need to meet the demand and make a living off of it.
It doesn't. You're right.
It's kind of the starving artist name came from somewhere and you got to hustle. And
It's not like
lot.
we're getting rich. I mean, again, I think that this whole deal with Kat Von D is it's a specific target
Yeah.
because she is very well known. She has money.
She got a show. Like,
That's exactly why he's going after her.
if it was somebody
if that would have been if that would have been me and I would have posted it, I guarantee you he's not coming after me. Why? Because he ain't going to get blood from a turn. It's not like I'm making money
Right.
hand over fist. I just took an image and recreated it and is the best I could
Right.
and put it on somebody because that's what they wanted.
we could send him a
you know,
complimentary sticker.
Yeah, like Corey Taylor's not going to come after me and sue me. Watch it. I'm going to get served with papers. No, he's not coming. He's not coming after
We'll
me
frame
because
him and put him on
because
your-
it's that aspect that he knows full well. This guy's not out here making millions of dollars, or making.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wants to be petty over a $2,000 portrait,
Right.
by all means. I mean, come after me. What is that? What you want back
But
from
you're
me?
not
You want
making a
you want the
career out of
2,000.
just him.
You want the $2,000 that I made off of that portrait? Really, you're a multimillionaire and you want
Right.
my 2,000. I'm merely the person down below that's trying to make a buck and feed my family. I'm not trying to purposely step on anybody's toes or do anything of that
Right.
nature. But I mean, let's be realistic here, people. It's a photograph
Yeah.
that a tattoo artist took and tattooed on somebody. And if your poor ass needs to go and sue them, trying to make a name for yourself again because you're not even relevant, then you've got a problem, a big problem.
Yeah.
Because you messing with the wrong industry to be doing something like this.
Yeah.
Totally messing with the wrong industry. I mean, I at the end of the day, I can't wait for this to post, and I want to see thousands of
Sure,
people's
yeah,
input, comments, your take on this whole thing, because this is just my personal opinion. His and
Yeah.
Kelsey's. I again, these are our opinions. It's not the fact that it's right or wrong. It is what it is, and I would love to see other people's, take on this whole thing and what
Yeah.
how they feel
a
about
lot
it.
of people across a lot of
I mean,
industries.
it does.
Whether
I
we're
mean-
right or wrong, or you have your own insight or your own,
Yeah.
perspective, like we want to hear it. So
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah.
We'll start conversations.
Flood the comments. I would
I'm sure
love
this
to
is
see
not
it.
going to be the first.
No. I really this morning thought, I'm like, you know what? This is going to be the episode that's going to put a fire under a lot of people because they're going to have a lot to say. I mean, just like we did. I mean, we all have our opinions on this.
It's
and
hard to
our
have
own
no
take.
opinion on it. Yeah.
And I mean, it's just interesting to read comments. It just as it was to read the comments on that Instagram, post about how people felt. I would love to hear other people's input on this and where they stand and what they think. I mean, and none of your comments are going to be right or wrong. It's just your personal opinion.
Right.
You know, you're not going to get bashed by it. I would hope that you would not look at us and bash us for our personal opinions. It's just our take on it. And
This is an everyday thing for us.
Yeah.
And eventually you have to, you lose enough sleep thinking about whether, you know, the ethics of being an artist or having a skill set.
Don't lose sleep. Just try not to be a dick.
Yeah.
That's
Just,
it.
yeah. We're only scratching the surface on
Yeah,
what we
there's
can
a lot
talk
of
about
topics
later.
we
I'm
didn't
sure
talk
this.
about at all
I'm sure
in
this
art
will get
ethics, so-
revisited again.
Yeah.
Is
in
there
the
anything
future.
else that you guys
I
want?
think we got a wrap for today, but we should absolutely continue the conversation another day and branch into some things. And maybe in 6 more years, that case will be resolved.
Yeah,
and
yeah, we can touch back on
He's
it.
just trying to get her to settle out of court.
Right.
All right, well,
I
then-
think he is for an undisclosed amount of money, and I hope she doesn't. And you know, sorry,
strong,
Kat, I'm not a
Kat.
fan of yours, but all the power to you to get through this.
It sucks that she's the one that,
Wow.
you know,
That
there's
they
always
picked
going to be
on.
somebody
She's in the
that's one.
limelight. She was low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
so-
Get into
so-
all the details.
hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, follow us, drop all them comments, because by God, I want to spend an evening reading them.
Nate will answer everyone.
Yeah. What he said. Well
You
done.
said there's no right or
I'll go
wrong,
down
right?
the rabbit hole.
I object. I think there probably are wrong comments, but most of them are fine.
Right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.